For more content like this, log on to gibbopresents.com.
It's Gibbo, and right now I'm joined by selector and co-founder of Deadly Dragon Sound. It is Scratch Famous. How are you?
Pretty good, sir. Big up, Gibbo. Thank you.
On June the 3rd, you will be marking Deadly Dragon's 25th anniversary with a big dance at the Paper Box in Brooklyn, featuring a host of artists and sounds, including Yami Bolo, Meeks, Red Foxx, Screechy Dan, Super C, Willow Wilson, and Supersonic from out of Germany. We'll discuss the dance in some more detail a little later on. But first, I think it's important to take a step back and reflect on the past 25 years.
Yeah, long time, man.
Correct. So let's go right back to the start. Am I correct? Deadly Dragon was formed whilst you were at university in Chicago.
No, it was actually after I had already graduated university. I was just living there for a while after university.
Okay, and you linked up with a selector who was based in Chicago?
Yeah, what basically happened is I went to Chicago for 4 years for university, and then I came back to New York, and I was working with a bunch of different record labels in New York, like Signet Records and Tanya Records, and kind of learning the business from that side. And I started to select records and collect tunes and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up moving back to Chicago, and I was pretty bored when I was there. And like the first day I got there, I went and found like a Jamaican record store and started hanging out with those guys. And a day later became, the artist Siddiqui now was one of the people hanging out at the record store that we became friends. And I linked up with Major Damage, another US DJ who was out in Chicago, surprisingly. And I used to just make tapes. And I had given a tape to a guy named Johnny Machine who played it at his bar all the time. And one day I got a call by a guy named Rick Shaw, Selector Rick Shaw, and he called me and said, I heard your tapes and I have this night that I've been planning, bring down some sound boxes, and I was wondering if you'd want to play. So that's how it all began.
And then did you begin to develop a following in the city?
It was pretty crazy because we came down the first night and it was essentially me, Rick Shaw, and a couple other selectors, and there was maybe 4 guys smoking weed in the back, drinking beer, and we had a great time playing tunes. Like Richie played more of a 70s vibe and some obscure stuff, and I was playing very up-to-the-time dance hall, and we were just having a blast, like drinking beers and having a good time, and I kind of didn't think about it at all. And the next week we came back for the next Sunday, and there was like 60 people there. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. People suddenly, realized that we were there. And then the week after that, it was ram-packed. And it was just a crazy organic thing. We had people coming from every side of the city, north side Jamaicans, south side Jamaicans, hipsters, skaters, hip-hop kids. And it became this like crazy night that for a couple years we ran it every Sunday. And if you ask people in Chicago about that night, it was a very seminal night for DJs. There wasn't really a DJ culture in that part of the city at that time. And doing something that wasn't in like a big club or anything that had a more underground feel was really, it just united a lot of people, and it was super, super fun.
And how long was it before you decided to relocate to New York?
Well, I was there for a couple of years, and then things, we shut down our night, and a couple of things happened, and I'm from New York, and I really wanted to go back, so I moved back to New York in 1998.
Can you describe the reggae scene for me in New York in 1998? How does it differ from today?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of differences. I mean, when we got there in 98 and I started playing out, I really felt that there was, it was a very segregated audience of people. You had primarily Jamaicans doing Jamaican events and people that were more involved with vintage reggae on their side of the street doing their vintage thing. and it didn't seem like there was a lot of people kind of coming together for things. And I mean, I think 1998 was a transitional period for New York reggae. You had like this golden age of New York reggae from, basically 84 up into the mid 90s. And 98, a lot of the stores had shut down, began to shut down a lot of the sound systems, started putting away their sounds, and it just was a kind of transitional period. So it was a breath of fresh air to come in back to New York and kind of be playing vinyl again and looking back at things and trying to bring the vibe that we had for Deadly Dragon, which was really, in my mind, it was to play things, to look at music as the whole heap of music from Jamaica, from the 60s to up to the time things, and be able to find connections between it and just share big tunes for the sake of them being big tunes. And that started really bubbling and bringing a lot of people, and I felt very immediately that we were being embraced for doing what we were doing.
So did you start to play out as soon as you returned to New York, or did it take a minute to get involved and build some links up?
No, I already had a whole heap of links, so that wasn't really a problem.
And which were some of the venues you were playing at when you first returned?
Well, the first place that I played at in New York was a place called Joe's Pub, which was attached to the Public Theater. And it was, again, a Thursday night, and I had been asked to come play. And pretty immediately that night caught on and became a really, really nice night. Ram night, great venue, great sound, and did that for about a year or so.
And was it just you playing the sound solo at this point in time?
Yeah. At that point in time, it was just me solo, and then after playing solo for a bit, a next guy named Teflon started playing with me, and I met Queen Majesty, who started playing with me as well.
Yeah, just talk me through at which point in time you linked up or recruited the other selectors, past and present, on the sounds, and what reason you decided to bring each of them on boards.
Okay. Initially, when I came back to New York, one kind of important thing is that part of, for starting Deadly Dragon back up in New York was, no one gave us any shot. Like, no one came out and was like, oh, open up for us or play for us. It really had to be a hustle, finding clubs, finding places to play, doing all the promotions ourselves, really working as hard as possible to be able just to go out, like not making any money, but just to be able to go and play music and try to bring people to the audience. And at one show I played, I did a little guest spot. I ran into this kid named Teflon, who was a wicked selector, just really on point and very funny guy. And he and I shared a lot of like a common love for 80s music and vibes, and he and I got along just really well. And at a certain point, just through hanging out, he was like, pretty much asked if he could be part of the sound, and I said absolutely, And so he and I started selecting together, and that was probably it must have been around 2001 that Teflon came on, and we started playing together. And then let's see, a little after that, maybe within a year or two of that, I met Queen Majesty at another event where she was playing, and we started talking about music and started playing together. And she had come over to the house. We'd play music together. We'd go out and play music together, and she became part of the night. And then selector now, JD, who is also my partner in the record store. JD and I became friends through a mutual friend, and I'd see him around occasionally. And it was funny because someone introduced us because I always played this weird Conroy Smith record that was the tune Dangerous on Joyride. And a friend of mine was like, yo, the only other person I know that has that is this guy, JD. So we started linking up, and our tastes really reflected each other, and kind of interest in the music really reflected each other. And when we decided to open a store, I wanted to put together a website, and I put it together. And when we tried to turn that website into a retail store, I asked JD to be my partner in the retail store, and he thankfully said yes. And together we opened the retail store together. And through that, he also started playing with us as Deadly Dragon, and he became part of the sound system, as well as he and I being partners in the store.
Had opening a record store always been a goal of yours?
Well, initially, it's kind of a circuitous route, but after 9/11, I had a business that was like a day-to-day business that was run out of my house, and I lived right by the World Trade Center. And so for about a month and a half, I was locked out of my space because there was no electricity, there was nothing, you couldn't get in there. And I lost like a lot of work, and I was really struggling to find some real work that paid bills. And through that time, I'd always kind of sold records a little bit, but I was thankful because I found Hustling Records started being able to, brought me through that time and made me be able to survive like a really rough time. So I started focusing more attention on doing that, and I'd go to the flea markets every morning. I'd go hustle through the Bronx finding records, and around 2003, I thought to myself, as a sound system, you have one aspect that you're sharing music with, you're playing out, but there's this whole other realm of really sharing music, which was always the thing that I had wanted to do, was to share my kind of love with the music. And I thought another way to do that, another way to expand Deadly Dragon, was to actually be able to create a store. So that's when we put up the website in 2003.
And was it 2005 when the actual location on Forsyth Street opens?
Yeah, and that was, I was walking with my father in the Lower East Side, and that stretch of the block was a block that my grandmother had lived around the corner from there when I was young. And I always loved that stretch of the block, but it was really a horrible block, during the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. It was like just a very rough block. But it had been cleaned up a little bit, and I saw that storefront, and I was like, man, that's our home. I got to be there. And also my wife at the time, she's still my wife, but at the time she was sitting piled up records all over the house, and people coming through it all, hours to buy music. And she said, you got to get this stuff out of the house and open a store. I can't take it anymore. So that was when we decided to go into the retail business, and JD and I worked together to open the store.
When did you launch your downtown top ranking night, and talk me through the event's evolution over the years?
Okay, yeah, that's kind of a cool story, because basically what had happened was all along we had been doing events since we opened the store and bringing in a lot of live artists at a place called Happy Ending. We did nights with Johnny Osborne, Carl Meeks, Knight Rider, Screechy Dan. It was all sort of one-off nights, but really great. Like it was pretty much once a month we would come up with some different concept, some different artist. And part of the whole thing was we really wanted to bring back a lot of these artists that we hadn't seen in a long time and share them with a new audience. Like, it was very exciting for people the first time that we brought Johnny Osborne out in Manhattan. He hadn't played in Manhattan for years and years and years, and a whole audience of people that always knew who Johnny Osborne was like, oh my God, he's actually here in New York. Like, it kind of bugged people out. And so, we had Mighty Crown come play with us, and Downbeat, a whole bunch of different sounds came and played over there at Happy Ending. And it was just, every time we did it, it was a great night. And we had just an incredible amount of fun doing those nights. But at the same time, it sort of, always putting on one production, I kind of, felt like we really wanted a weekly. And we had been doing a weekly at a place called King Size, which was fun. But at a certain point, King Size closed down. We were doing these live events once in a while at Happy Ending. And I thought to myself that one thing New York really needed was a night that was dedicated to real vintage styles, to, be able to play rocksteady, to be able to play ska, to be able to play roots and early reggae and all those type of things. So we put together Downtown Top Ranking as a way to really just focus on the vintage side of what we do. And that started off at Happy Ending, and it started going great. And since then, we've kind of expanded what we play. Like, we definitely play Rub-a-Dub and everything. But in the initial thought was that we really wanted just a pure vintage night. And that was 7 years ago now that we started Downtown Top Ranking. And since then, it's had a couple different homes. But it's now one of the longest running reggae nights ever in the city.
You're not the type of person to boast, but let me ask you this. What impact has Deadly Dragon had on New York? How would things be different if you hadn't been around for the last 20 plus years?
It's true. I don't like to boast. I mean, it really what I think all sound system people should do. And while sound system culture is associated with boasting and bigging up yourself, it's also, we have to all remember that what we do is play music. And the music that we play, we're sharing it. One way or another, it's the artist and it's the music who are the driving force. And I think that a kind of basic love for the music in New York, I think that we help to unite a lot of different people. Before we came around, you had a lot of divisions between kind of vintage music fans and new music fans and the Jamaican side of things, and people, there wasn't a lot of mixing and mingling, and it makes me really happy now to go to, a dance in Williamsburg and see Johnny Osbourne hanging out with a crowd of people that would have never, ever been there. To have those people kind of learn about each other's culture and appreciate it has been really a blessing, I think, for me. And I think that we really help that. And I think that, it's not Deadly Dragon, but also, our interest in 80s music at the time, it was something that was just, no one was talking about. You could go on eBay and never find an 80s record. No one cared. They thought it was garbage. And we really championed those sounds of New York labels like Park Heights and different things that we really believed in and really loved. And I think that opened up a respect for 80s music, or we helped to bring in, to share our love and respect for 80s music. I think that was an important part, and share that with New York culture and give a respect to the New York side of things.
Let's now look ahead to the 25th anniversary dance, which, as I mentioned in the intro, will be taking place on June the 3rd at the Paper Box in Brooklyn. Yes. How did you decide who to include in this lineup? Talk me through your thought process.
Okay, well, first of all, one thing I did forget to mention is that, one really important addition to Deadly Dragon has been Johnny Go Figure, who was crowned last year part of Deadly Dragon. And he was someone that we had met through his love of music, him coming to events and us listening to some mixtapes. And eventually he started out as MC with us, and now selects with us as well as MC. And he's an artist in his own right. And he's been just an incredibly important addition to Deadly Dragon. And I really believe that he's the future of the sound. He's an amazing, amazing artist, selector, person. So big up Johnny Go Figure. When we were coming to this event, my concept was that I wanted something that showcased our past, talked about our present, and also showcased the future. So I wanted to include kind of a bunch of people that I just felt personally close to their music or to themselves. So I wanted to ask Panza from Supersonic to come out from Germany to play the show, because I love what he does. And I think Panza has one of the great all-around tastes in music. It really complements Deadly Dragon's own love for music. Panza can play rocksteady, he can play crazy dubs, he can play up-to-the-time stuff, and he just loves the music and loves the culture. And I couldn't have an event like this without including him, just because he's a brethren, and I think Panza's a great guy. So that was my first thought. And then in terms of artists, I really desperately, I couldn't do anything without Screechy Dan. He's the godfather of New York and one of the most underappreciated artists in the world. He's can do anything. He can sing, he can DJ. He's also the nicest, kindest person that you could ever meet. And I don't think New York would have a reggae scene without him. He's the glue that binds the whole thing together. So with Screechy Dan, I thought, who else, could we bring along? And of course, Red Fox's partner is also a good brethren, and the two of them in combination is always wicked. And then I had to bring out Super C, because Super C to me, there's no more New York single than Bad Boy. Everything about it is the wickedest song ever, from the intro to the lyrics to every metaphor in there. If you know New York at that time, and him speaking about Honda Accords and then putting it into according to, it's just wicked. And his voice is so massive. And last year, or actually it was like 3 months ago, we were cutting some dubs with him and naturally Red Fox and Screechy, some combination dubs. And his voice, if you're next to him, you can't believe how loud it is. He just projects like no one's business. It's insane. So I knew that Super C hadn't been on stage for a bit in a big show. So I got to get Super C. So talked to Super C. That worked out, and it was really a pleasure. I'm really happy he's going to be there. And then Willow Wilson has just been one of the great New York singers, and is also someone who's always been just supportive of Deadly Dragon. So I got to get Willow Wilson on. And Carl Meeks is an artist that we had worked with for years and years and years. And I think, not to be boastful, but I think that by putting him on and bringing him out to shows, which he hadn't really been performing at, and I think the first show that we did with him was 2006 or 2007, I think it really helped to bring back a relevance to his career. And he started to record a lot and do a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying that we did it, but I think that we highlighted who he was as an artist and helped him to reconnect to people. And so I really wanted Carl Meeks. And then Yami Bolo is Yami Bolo. He's an artist that, since he was 6 years old, sitting on stage with a Heineken bottle with Barry G, has been, an icon in this music. And he still retains just his incredible voice and his incredible heart. He's a great person. And, I really appreciate him. And I've had so many great, beautiful conversations with Yami Bolo that I was just very blessed to have him join up with us. And then in terms of, I thought to myself, I really, want this to be about not just the artists that we kind of came up with, but artists in the future. So Johnny Go Figure is going to be performing a group called Thunder Lions, which is Naughty Chris and Isaac Faith. I think that they're a great hybrid combination of a new New York style that brings in some of the classic rub-a-dub styles and also updates it with a very new kind of feel. And I really, really appreciate what they do. And then Atachi and Fire the Future, who are part of How Clear, and they're brand new roots artists out of New York that are really, really fantastic. And so I wanted to bring them in. And then Metric Man, who's just been new artist out of New York and has been incredibly supportive. And I couldn't do a 25th anniversary without, I always say, if you support people, they'll support you back, and you got to support those who support you. And Metric has been a stalwart person, always in our corner and always vibing with us. So I wanted to bring him out. And then in terms of future styles, we have the producer Naram, who's from New Zealand, and he's been doing all sorts of stuff with Jatari and creating all these kind of brand new, updated 80s kind of style, but with a new kind of focus and point. So we wanted to bring him in to do his thing since he was coming in from New Zealand. And I think he kind of represents the future of where things are going with the music in terms of vinyl, in terms of rhythm and vibe.
And this is also the New York launch party for this year's Rototom Festival? Yeah,
absolutely. Dubsty, who we're doing this with, have an incredible sound system. So we're going to be using Dubsty's sound, and they linked with Rototom. So this is going to be the launch for the Rototom Festival.
If people want to purchase tickets, is there somewhere they can go to either in New York or online?
Yeah, I mean, the tickets at the door are going to be $15, and online, I have to check the exact thing, but they can go to paperbox.com, or they can Google Paperbox, and they can get they can get the tickets, or dubstyle.com. They can go to ticketfly.com and just search by Deadly Dragon 25th, and it's there.
Great. Before we finish, is there anything else you'd like to mention with regards to the upcoming dance, or just the sound in general?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to really, big up everyone who's supported Deadly Dragon over the years. It's been like a really diverse and amazing thing, and big up to all the people that have taught me so much, like Jawise from Tipitone Sound. Big up to Tony Screw, Downbeat. These people were essential in, being teachers to me, and people that we always reached out to, and just really, the friendships over the years that we've made with so many different artists and so many different people that have come through to dances and shared with us the love of the music, either, coming through the record store, coming through the dances. One of the great pleasures of doing this is you have so many people out there that love music, and when you share music with people, you also learn so much. You learn to see music through someone else's eyes. And when you can really do that, it's a form of great empathy, because you learn what someone else loves, and it teaches you to love the music that they're loving. So, when I first started doing this and started buying records, back in the 80s, I was very, forward ever, backward never. I used to always say, I don't play reggae, I only play dancehall, because I associated, reggae with hippies and shit like that, and I really had a problem with hippies, so I was always like, I play dancehall, no hippie music. And it took me a while to start looking back and seeing how militant roots were, and how angry some of this music was, and it kind of, the things that really reflected to me that I had not really seen when I was younger, and that really came through other people playing me music and helping me to understand some of the music, the more vintage music from the 60s and 70s. And I really want to thank, everyone who's taught me anything about music, because it's a blessing. And just, in general, thanks to everyone for their support and all the friendships we've garnered along the way. It's been 25 years, of actually just great times. I mean, I love playing music. I like playing records for people. It's really a simple thing, it's fun to play records that you like, and it's fun for people to enjoy them. And there's a lot of good people out there that you meet through this community. While there's a lot of politics and nonsense, it all pays off in the end in terms of friendships and love for music.
On Saturday, June the 3rd, Deadly Dragon will be celebrating their 25th anniversary at the Paper Box in Brooklyn. It's sure to be a great night. If you're in the New York area, make sure you are in attendance. Scratch Famous, thanks a lot.
Bless.
Gibbo presents